Hey, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate you for tuning in. This is another edition of the On the Ball podcast. Tonight we got a bit of a smaller crew. We have Brett and myself. Dylan's tied up, and Jake is still away. I mean, we kind of went to that a few weeks ago. So you got myself and Brett, but we still have a great show ahead for you. So definitely make sure that you get locked in. We're going to talk about some Olympic basketball, which was a kind of a talking point before, and a lot of people were a little bit worried about Team USA. We'll kind of go into that and kind of see where Brett is at with them, and myself give our thoughts. We also going to talk about wide receiver in San Francisco that is potentially on the move. Actually had an update uh, earlier today. We'll catch you up on that. And since it is just Brett, no trivia necessarily tonight. For our fun, we're going to talk about a video game that's coming out in a couple of weeks. They released some ratings that a lot of people had some thoughts about. So we'll definitely get into that as well. Jory, what's going on? See you already in here. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, so Brett, before we get into our first topic, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's a great day to talk sports. I'm really excited.
I mean, it's always a great day to talk sports. And I mean, look, normally this time of the year is a bit slow, at least with the Olympics. We definitely have something to talk about. Um, NFL is just getting started with the Hall of Fame game, which we also will talk about a little bit later. So it's good not to have that break in the sports calendar where you get like a couple weeks where there's like a definite downtime and you're struggling to find stuff to talk about. We have a lot. So let's go ahead and get into the first topic. So, looking at Team USA basketball, now this is the bracket for the women because can't neglect the women. I feel like going into the Olympics, a lot of people felt much better about the women's team than the men's team. The women have just gone out, dominated, you know, swept through group stage. Their quarterfinal game tomorrow against Nigeria. Also, see you got Serbia and Australia in the quarterfinals, Spain and Belgium, Germany and France. Brett, like, what's your thoughts on the women's team? I mean, any reason to think the women just don't dominate their way to gold in this competition?
No, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that they're going to dominate their way to gold. It feels like when it comes to the Olympics on the women's side, like there's some catching up to the USA to do. Like they're in
Mm-hmm.
that little like 1980s, 1990s stage right now where clearly the USA is ahead, and there's no doubt who's going to get the gold. I think there'll be some good games in there, but at the end of the day, I don't think the USA will really be brought wire to wire by any of these teams, and I think they should have the gold no problem.
Jory says it's going to be a good game versus Nigeria. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree with that. I mean, kind of to Brett's point, I do think that a lot of these other countries, I feel like the gap is not like wide as ever when probably like a few Olympics ago, but the gap is still there. But there are countries that are definitely on the come up. I mean, I've seen Spain play, except for they're kind of a bit of a smaller team, but they play pretty well. That's why I think a lot of these other countries they have to find that balance that the U.S. has, where the U.S. has like a Brianna Stewart that's got some height and is very versatile on the wing. Like that's where a lot of these countries are missing players like that in the wing. You either have countries like China that have like dominant bigs, or you have Spain where it's a lot of small guards out there on the floor. So that's where a lot of those countries will find an issue. Trajan was going on when you have Brittany Griner. I just like tremendously. It's hard to lose to these teams with the size alone. I mean, you got Brittany Griner, you got Asia Wilson. Not a lot of these countries have Asia Wilson's just running around. So until kind of that happens, I mean, Australia used to have like Lauren Jackson and a few bigs like that, but I do think that it's slowly closing. But like you said, Brett, this is kind of like you said in the '90s when other countries really started building up their programs on the men's side. So it'll be interesting to see going forward in future Olympics who can necessarily close the gap the quickest. All right. I mean, I guess any other thoughts on the women's game? I guess a team you think could give the U.S. the best game?
That's tough. I'm gonna predict that we have our toughest matchup against, I'll guess, Australia.
Okay.
But yeah, like overall, I think this should be a pretty straightforward goal for us, and it comes down to the fact that I think the other ladies in these other countries are talented too, but like you said, they don't have the star power and balance that the Team USA has. Like they're either good at one thing or the other, and Team USA is just so like more hilariously well rounded than most of these other
Mm-hmm.
teams. That's really where you start to see this massive talent gap.
Right. Hey, what's going on, Con Man? Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, I mean that's I guess it's maybe the arrogance or whatever of like USA. You expect them to win, but I do kind of like to see which countries make it a tighter game than normal, so that 4 years down the line you're kind of looking to see how they take that next step. So we'll see. I think we're both in agreement that we expect the U.S. on the women's side to get the gold pretty easily, maybe with a tough game or two here or there. All right.
Which, by the way,
Okay.
like you got to remember in the Olympics, that doesn't mean nothing. I'm gonna kind of segue us over to the men's side inadvertently here, but we all thought Canada was gonna be was gonna get a medal. Then they got walked down by Evan Fournier and Celtics legend Yubusele to
Hey,
lose. So
hey,
so
Selly,
you
man.
just remember, if you can think we can medal, but that's not a guarantee. Far from it.
True. I mean, look, all it takes is one team to hang around fourth quarter. The U.S. obviously would have all the pressure at that point, and you never know. One of these other countries could get hot from three, keep the game close. So yeah, I mean, we're both saying that we expect the U.S. to to medal and get a gold in this, but yeah, to say it'd be a cakewalk, it would probably be too much to say right now. Because the knockout stage, these other countries made it through their group just as well as the U.S. did, so they have talent for sure. But it's like we were saying, it's just hard for them to have the collection of talent that the U.S. has. But yeah, let's segue to the men. So with the men, remember we saw them beat South Sudan by 1. Everybody was so worried about them. They get in the group stage, they're doing their thing. Now it seems like they're starting to blow teams out. You know, they beat Brazil here by a significant amount, which we'll get into that game in a little bit. But Serbia, Australia, I was watching that game and I seriously thought Australia had that one. Patty Mills was going crazy early on. Australia had all the momentum. And I swear I like turned my head and then turned back, and Serbia had the lead. It ultimately won it. And I know that you and I have talked about this like on Discord or whatever, but the wild thing about Serbia is the non-Jokic minutes are just abysmal. Like we've seen kind of the split with the Nuggets. If you haven't watched Serbia play, take that extreme and push it like 1,000 times worse. Like when he's on, Serbia can compete with a lot of these other teams, and when he's off the court, Serbia looks completely lost. And that's kind of what happened in the Australia game. But I mean, did you catch that one? I don't know if you saw that game or not.
It's one of those games where, like, it really, at the end of the day, it came down to who has the best player. because in the last couple minutes there, Jokic just completely took over, and Australia just didn't have an answer for it. So, I was impressed by Serbia's resilience. They have to figure out those non-Jokic minutes quick. We saw that issue actually against us in the group play, right? Because when Jokic was on the court, Serbia played us dead even. Like, they competed with us when he was on the court, and they shot 3 of 29 with him off of it against us.
Yeah.
So I like what they did here. I like how they survived Australia, even if at times they didn't play their best game. But if they want to have a shot against the USA, I don't really care about the Jokic minutes. I know if I have Jokic on the court, we're going to compete. But Serbia, they got to really ask themselves, how are they going to survive those non-Jokic minutes?
Yeah, and especially with a USA team that's playing defense really well right now, that's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, we'll get into the USA-Brazil game in a little bit. Germany and Greece was a game that I know you were paying attention to, as you know, you're a Bucks fan. And when you're looking at Greece, you got Greek Freak, Giannis on the squad. So, I mean, what were your thoughts on that game? Because I think we discussed this one as well. It's like Greece has some similar issues than Serbia, except for like the players around Giannis aren't even necessarily as good as some of the players around Jokic on Serbia.
Oh, Giannis probably advances if he even had one player like Bogdan Bogdanovic, but no. It's almost like I'm just sitting there watching Giannis in this like horrendous loop. And it's almost like I was like sitting there in a time machine, and I'm watching him play the Celtics in 2022, right? Where he's clearly the best player on the court. He's absolutely dominating, and the issue is nobody else can knock down their shots. I just had to rewatch that today. Giannis dominated. He shot 11 of 14 from the field, 22. Like I think he had 24 points to end it, or 22. He had 22 out of the 63 Greece points. Greece as a team shot 29% from three. He just had no shooting or support around him, and he couldn't get it done against Germany. It was one situation where you knew who the best player on the court was. But if we went down compared the teams, Germany would probably have numbers 2 through 10 for best players on the court, and overall, it was just too much for Greece. Great showing by Giannis, so I'll take it.
Yeah, and look, when a lot of these countries are made up there, it's one star, maybe a second guy. Because like I said, Serbia at least has Bogdanovic, who obviously has the NBA experience and has a game that's, Jory said isn't the GOAT, the Nassus on the team.
Not this year. He tore his Achilles, so.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Well, yeah, I completely forgot about that with the Nassus. Okay.
Your second.
If they had him, they'd have beaten Germany. That's what Greece missed out.
Yeah, if you look at Greece's roster, like you would probably be amazed and wonder how they actually got out of the knockout stage, because their roster is actually pretty terrible. Yeah,
I mean, no, they got out because I think it was a tiebreaker over South Sudan.
Yeah,
I think it's because South Sudan lost by too much against Serbia. That's how Greece got in. So, they didn't necessarily leap into the knockout round. They clearly backed into it, but hey, they made it. They had their cup of coffee and they're out. I mean, see you in 4 years, Greece. Now, France and Canada, because we said, as you said a little earlier, everybody thought coming into this that Canada was that dangerous team out there waiting for the U.S. once you get to the medal round. Well, they went up against France and couldn't get past Wemby and the crowd, obviously, because the French crowd is obviously on level 20 when it comes to France playing. I mean, how big of a disappointment is it for Canada?
If I'm Jamal Murray, I am getting on a plane. I'm flying right to Denver and like, hey, where's that extension? Actually, real quick, let me sign that. He looked abysmal, and that's
Yeah.
putting it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It is insanely disappointing for Canada. This is a team. Like, did you see what Wemby actually shot from the field today?
I actually didn't. Actually, I'll look up that number right now.
He was 2 of 10. Rudy Gobert played 3 minutes. That's not a game you can lose.
Right.
You clamp the best player. The DPOI like is dealing with an injury, and he only played 3 minutes. And you're telling me you couldn't pull it off against Yabusele, Evan Fournier, like what? Like Nick Batum? Like I get it; those are some NBA players, but like this Canada roster: Lou Dort, SGA, RJ Barrett, Dwight Powell, Dylan Brooks, Trey Lyles, Kelly Olynyk, Kyle Burst, Jamal Murray, Nemhard, Nickel Alexander Walker.
Yeah.
That is all NBA level talent compared to like France maybe having like 5 or 6 guys. So to me, this is just an insanely disappointing loss for Canada. And if I'm a Nuggets fan, I might be starting to get a little worried about Jamal Murray because he just hasn't looked great ever since the playoffs.
Yeah, that is actually, something that I was assuming that the conversation was going to go towards when talking about Canada. The Jamal Murray, when he hit the bubble and did his thing there, everybody assumed like Jamal Murray is going to just take off and become the superstar. And it's almost like he's gotten stagnant while slowly kind of declining a little bit. And yes, if you are a Nuggets fan, it has to be a little troubling because especially when you look at France, and we all know how legendary Evan Fournier becomes when he puts on that France jersey. It's one of the more frustrating things about that guy because I saw him for a couple of years in Boston and he struggled to even know what he was doing on the court. But you get him in international competition and he turns into like Ray Allen all of a sudden. And some of these international guys kind of do that. Like Patty Mills. I know Patty Mills has had some big scoring games in the NBA, but like when he's with Australia, like that dude is unstoppable. But for Jamal Murray, and like I said, this is an opportunity for a Canada team coming off of the World Cup where they were feeling themselves after, knocking out the US in that competition to then back it up with this performance isn't what, Canadians were expecting. And you read through that roster. Nothing but NBA players there. And especially being led by SGA, who was a runner-up in MVP. Yeah, if you get Wemby to shoot 2 for 10, that's a game you should blow out France in. Like France has to be looking at this like, okay, we dodged the bullet there. What are the odds that Wemby goes 2 for 10 again? So for France, you're feeling really good about yourself. So I guess looking ahead, like I said, we're going to go back to the USA and Brazil because I do have a graphic for that one. So France and Germany are up next. Who are you expecting to take that one?
I'm gonna go with you know what, they survived, and I think France has a bounce back game, and they face the USA in the finals. I think we get a fun little Wemby versus USA finals duel. Germany, Serbia, third place game is going to be great. I will say though, watching Germany, the Orlando Magic should straight up consider trading for Dennis Schroeder because him and the Wagner brothers have like really insane chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if I were them with Schroeder being on like a minimum contract, I would absolutely consider like trying to get him and seeing if you can translate that, because even if you can translate some of that magic onto your bench unit, that's probably one of the better bench units in the league. So,
I mean, it's an interesting point. I feel like when looking at Orlando, I've kind of been saying like they do need veteran presence. They're very young all across their roster. They had their taste of the playoffs last year. But what really bogged them down against Cleveland in that first round series was point guard play at times, not being able to get them into sets, probably not getting the ball out of Banchero's hands sometimes when Banchero kind of forced some shots on offense. I guess, yeah, if you brought in a Schroeder type of guard, like I said, with the connection with some of these German players, that would work. Now, Jory does bring up something here. Problem is, ego is too big. If he provides a big enough spark off the bench, he'll think it's time for him to start and he'll play like it. I think that's kind of always been something that's followed Schroeder a little bit. I mean, Atlanta, it became him versus Jeff Teague. They had to make a decision because Schroeder was playing too well off the bench. I think Boston was a bit of an issue. So, yeah, I mean, if he can go to Orlando and kind of understand what they're trying to build and fit into it, fine. But if his plans are to go there and to try to fight his way to the starting job and then try to turn it into his party, then, yeah, if I'm Orlando, I'd be like, I'll take my chances elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I say it. He could be a problem, that's for sure. I think it becomes a worthwhile gamble because he's a free agent after this year, so it's not like he's like under contract for the next 3. I do very much understand Jory's point, and it would be a risk, but I also think it'd probably have higher rewards than a lot of people would think. Like if he's willing to accept his role and just ball out with like Mo and Franz on the anchoring a bench unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a risk, but I think there's some very high rewards there.
Right. So before we talk about USA and Serbia, do have to talk about USA versus Brazil. So we saw them beat up on Brazil 122-87. For the most part, once the US finally took off, they really took off and clamped down on Brazil, who is a team that has some talent, but they don't really have a lot of NBA talent on the team, and you kind of saw that on display today. I guess even before breaking it down, I do think this dynamic of Joel Embiid versus France in general is very interesting to me. And those of you who are watching or listening, so Joel Embiid has like triple citizenship. He's a citizen of Cameroon, France, and the US. France all this time assumed he was going to play for them. They were ready to see Embiid and Wemby playing together, and that's what they were ready for. Then obviously Embiid announced he was going to play for Team USA. So now the French crowd completely hates him. Every time he's on the court, he touches the ball, they boo him. Embiid goes back at them. He, does his stuff towards them. And I feel like if we do get France, US in a final, I think that crowd is going to be electric. And I feel like that, for that reason alone, I'm kind of rooting for it. Because I think that's going to be such an atmosphere that I would love to see it. But yeah, so I just wanted to add that in there because that's been kind of like a underlying thing with this Team USA team that the French crowd just hates Joel Embiid. They love everybody else. They hate Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid even said like the fact that they boo him means he's really good. And yeah, whatever. He did the Joel Embiid speak. So, but yeah, so looking at the game, just to give you like quick stats and then let Brett kind of give his thoughts on the game. Obviously, nobody really played too many minutes, but you got 17 from Anthony Edwards. Anthony Davis had 13. Durant with 11. You had Booker with 18. Booker had a really good game with 5 for 7 from 3. Embiid had 14, along with 7 rebounds. And then LeBron 12 with 9 assists. Then some other guys in there, Bam had 9. Tatum with 5. Derek White 5. Halliburton with 2. So everybody who played scored. So yeah, like Brett, what'd you think about it? I mean, what did you like about what Team USA did? Was there anything from this game that you are worried about going forward?
I'm just gonna say Embiid on France would have been fun just because we would have gotten to see Wembanyama at small forward. That'd have been quite the
Yeah,
lineup with Embiid and Rudy.
yeah.
Um, there's nothing I'm really worried about going forward. It it's tough when we talk about Team USA because it's like you think they're so much better than everybody, but they're not. The world has closed the gap considerably. I do
Hmm.
think that this is a gold medal team. I think Joel Embiid finally playing well might start to silence people. He was kind of the big question mark in this whole thing. Get tunnel vision, wouldn't look to pass it to open guys, trying to foul bait. But if they get this like more locked in version of Embiid, making quick decisions, I don't think they'll have an issue with anybody for the rest of the tournament. And overall, this was a great win over Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree because even when I watched them, I really paid attention to the Embiid minutes because when you're looking at Anthony Davis, you're looking at Bam Adebayo, defensively they're just different. They don't do the drop coverage because they're able to push up on guards and continue to run with them on the perimeter. Embiid plays drop coverage because he just has to. If he commits too much up the floor, guards will go around him and then he's just out of position. So the fact that he is kind of producing more offensively, because that's another area where he struggled early on, and it was just like he looks slow defensively and offensively. He looks like he doesn't fit in. It just became, why does Embiid continue to start? Why does he continue to get minutes? But now recently, it seems like he's figured out, when to go for his mid-range shot. He's taken a couple of threes as well. He posts up. So I don't know. Maybe the French crowd has finally gotten to him, and it's forcing him to play better because then it gives him opportunity to go back at them and egg them on and everything. And we know Embiid loves to egg on a road crowd when he's winning and all that. We know he loves to do that. So if that's what it took for him to finally lock in, fine. More power to you. I mean, I still might worry a bit about him defensively if the U.S. goes up against a team that gets really hot from three, and Embiid continues to do that drop coverage. But for right now, I would say they're playing about as well as they have in the lead up to this Olympics and through the group stage. Like, this was probably their most complete win. So I got to definitely give him and the team a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, even like against Joel Embiid, I'd get worried about a team getting hot from three, but in general, I wouldn't worry about it too much because,
Right.
well, let's face it, that's what Bam and AD are there for, right? To be the more
Exactly.
versatile defenders. So even if a team tries to attack the drop, all right, timeout, Bam, get in here. And you're not going to try that on Bam because he can switch 1 through 5. AD can switch very well on good guards as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, actually, like that forward lineup that they throw out there of AD, Bam, and Tatum, like they have been locking down perimeter players, and they are so tough against these other teams that, yeah, if Embiid is struggling and you have to start funneling those guys in, then yeah, the defense completely turns up at that point. I mean, you got Derek White, who is still doing his thing like he showed with the Celtics. Holiday, very good defensively. So when this team wants to lock in, like they lock in and actually clamp down on some of these teams. So yeah, the U.S. does play Serbia next. How do you feel like that game goes? Because like you said, last time they met in the group stage, when Jokic played, they were dead even. Jokic sat for a couple of minutes and it became a blowout. So unless Jokic plans on playing all 40 minutes, why would the same thing not happen this time around?
In all reality, I think Jokic very well might play just all 40 minutes next game because this is, a must-win game for him, and this is he can afford to rest a little against Germany or France or whoever he ends up running into in that final game. He's not going to be able to sit against the USA. Their bench is way too good.
Yeah,
that just can't happen. So I don't see Jokic sitting a lot of minutes. And the key to USA winning that game, I think it's really simple. You got to be aggressive attacking the rim. We know if Jokic isn't one thing, he's not a rim protector. You
Yeah.
guys got to collapse you got to play inside, and then once the defense start collapsing, then start kicking it out for threes. If the USA comes in against Serbia and just starts chucking threes right off the bat, I think it could be more of a game than we think. I think Serbia could give us fits if we start doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of how every team will probably look to attack the US is, drive and kick, almost like what South Sudan did in the group stage game where they kept it very close. That game, they drove, collapsed the US defense, and they just knocked down a crazy amount from three in that one. If another team can do that, that's your best bet to keep the game close against the US. I don't know if any other team is able to do that because that South Sudan team, if they threw it up, it was going in, and that's where that game became really close. So I don't know if I doubt Serbia can do it. I mean, between Germany and France, So the U.S. may not have that issue to run into.
I don't think so. One big difference between playing South Sudan in the group stage and now, we didn't have Kevin Durant back then, and
That's true.
We saw us match up again with South Sudan with Kevin Durant, and we were blowing them out by 20 at half. So even just having him in general is just tips the scales in our favor. And the fact that we're just bringing him off the bench, there's a reason our bench minutes look as good as they do, and a lot of it is just, hey, here's a 7-foot demigod scorer that can do everything on a basketball court. Yeah, he's our sixth man. Good luck. And nobody has an answer for that.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like we're both probably picking the U.S. to beat Serbia. We've already said we're picking France to beat Germany because, yeah. And I believe we both said we're expecting the U.S. to win gold. So if we have it as U.S. with gold, France with silver, who do you think would win the bronze between Germany and Serbia?
I'll go Serbia. I think it's another. I'm going to go with another situation where I think would see a lot of Australia versus Serbia in this one. I think Germany would fight, but at the end of the day, I think the best who it's going to come down to who has the best player, and I think Nikola Jokic would come in clutch in the medal game and at least make sure Serbia walks away with a bronze. So I think it's going to go U.S. gold, France silver, Serbia bronze.
Yeah, I actually tend to agree with you there. I do think Germany could make it very interesting because, like I said, the Wagner Schroeder thing is a legit thing with that team. But yeah, in a matchup like that, you figure Jokic will do all he can to at least secure the bronze. And who knows, Bogdanovic will probably have a pretty good game as well. So all right, we all kind of agree on how the men's will play out. Before we go to the next one, like. How enjoyable have you found the Olympics so far, even if it's just like outside of basketball?
I'm not gonna lie, I've only watched basketball.
Okay. Look, that some people kind of just lock in on certain sports and that's what they watch, and I completely understand that. Like I'm one of those nuts who's like watching diving or what was that like skeet shooting thing randomly, like on a day.
People look at me weird because I'm like, I'm really tired, and they're like, "Were you up playing?" Yeah, like, yeah. What were you doing? I was watching Puerto Rico and South Sudan play each other in basketball. They're like, "Huh?"
Exactly. Yeah.
I think basketball's been a lot of fun to watch. As long as Jamal Murray isn't shooting a jumper on my screen, it's been great.
Yeah.
If
I'm
I'm the Nuggets, I'm really worried. You watch them play these last for the longest while, and.
Mm-hmm.
They better hope it's just a down year because he was terrible in the playoffs. And I know the comeback is, well, he hit 2-game winners. He was still terrible in that Lakers series outside of like a 10-minute stretch in clutch time. He was terrible against the Timberwolves. He was terrible in the Olympics. And I have no doubt that he can bounce back. But if I'm Denver, I'm getting a little antsy because that's the guy who you're dangling $55 million a year contract in front of him.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Because it's almost to the point where the talk of the fact that Jamal Murray has never made an All-Star game and people used to be like outraged by it. Now it's kind of like, he may have missed his opportunity to actually get on an All-Star team if he continues playing this way. Look, maybe it's just something that he's just going through a really bad stretch. After the Olympics, he can decompress, and then by the start of next season, he's back to old Jamal Murray. But yeah, if he goes into next year and plays the same way, Denver might be like, instead of $55 million a year, how about 35? Can we make that happen? And Jamal Murray might be like, I'm out of here. So next year is going to be very important for them. I mean, especially like you said, the way they lost in the playoffs last year and all the conversations around Denver being, them being one and done, 1 year wonders and all this kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of pressure in Denver, especially on Jamal Murray next year. All right, moving on. Brandon Ayuk. I feel like we've kind of understood with the 49ers. We're going to get to a place where some tough decisions would have to be made. Whether it was Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle's age, the window with the 49ers potentially closing or being closed, depending on how you look at it. So now it seems like they're open to moving Brandon Ayuk. It seems like it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So as we've seen, the Patriots have a deal in place. The Browns have a deal in place. The update from, what's his name? Garofalo. I always forget how to pronounce it. From NFL Network is Ayuk wants to go to Pittsburgh, but the problem might be that the Patriots and Browns package is just better than the Steelers package is right now. Because I said Brandon Ayuk really loves Mike Tomlin, which how many players don't like Mike Tomlin? So looking at the 3 teams that are interested, where do you think he ends up? Or do you think there's some mystery 4th team that just randomly jumps in on this and snatches him away from these 3?
I'm going Ayuk to the Patriots because that's the one that makes the most sense to me, right? And here's why. The Browns already have Cooper. Trade Cooper, cool. You can have Ayuk. For the contract that he wants, first off, I don't think he's worth that money. And 2, you're already paying your quarterback massive amounts of money. So I don't think he goes to the Browns.
Okay.
Steelers, okay. You can team him with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, but Justin Fields, if he comes in and he plays well, all right, he's due for a contract soon, but I don't think his contract will be worth that much. So I'm going to put them at 2. The Patriots, they just drafted a brand new shiny quarterback, and he's going to need somebody to throw to. I'm not sold on the Patriots receiving room right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, at least the Browns have a guy. At least the Steelers have a guy. The Patriots don't have a guy. They have a bunch of guys, but they don't have a guy. So I think the Patriots will end up winning that sweepstakes because they'll be the most desperate to trade for a wide receiver. And they'll be willing to pay him whatever he wants. They'll pay him that top 5 money. I don't think he's worth top 5 money, but I think the Patriots will think he will be.
Okay. So, Jory said she's calling Ayuk to the Patriots by Friday. As the Patriots fan up here, if I wake up on Friday and I see that the deal's been made, I'm going to lose my mind. Because, like you said, Brett, I have seen enough of the wide receiver group the past couple of years that I just have just depressed by what potentially could happen this year. Although Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, who they drafted, I'm very high on both of them. Problem is they're rookies. And you already have a rookie quarterback, so that could be a whole lot of mess. I also think if you look at the Patriots in the offseason, they had a lot of money. They spent some of it, but didn't spend as much as I think people thought they would. So if a move like this was kind of the reason why they went about free agency the way that they did, I feel like Patriot fans would be like, okay, I get the plan of the offseason then. As Jory said, remember the Browns went and got Jerry Jeudy, so they don't necessarily need a wide receiver. Yes, and that's probably the only reason why they're probably so willing to include Amari Cooper. Because obviously, if they didn't have Jerry Jeudy, they probably wouldn't trade Amari Cooper necessarily for Brandon Ayuk because you still would need that complimentary wide receiver. So, I mean, the Jerry Jeudy part of it, for a second there, I actually forgot Jerry Jeudy was in Cleveland. So thanks for reminding me of that too, Jory. But I think fit-wise, yes, it would make a lot of sense for the Patriots. He would go there. He would automatically become your number one wide receiver, which is clearly what he wants based off of the demands that he's asking for. And because the Niners have so many other issues that they need to deal with, they probably can't afford that. My question would be, because I guess the framework is it'd probably be Kendrick Bourne going out. Can we get San Francisco to take Juju Smith? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't have like an issue with Juju Smith. It's just that he's breaking down clearly. And I get why the Niners want Kendrick Bourne. You know, they used to have him, then they let him go, and they have a chance to get him back. And he's obviously the more talented wide receiver, even though he's coming off a knee injury of his own. If the Patriots manage to do it and Juju's gone as well, I'll throw myself a party. I'm calling that right now. But yeah, I kind of agree. Probably because I am a Patriots fan, I would love to see the Patriots get him. I do think the Steelers part of it is really interesting because of how much he loves Pittsburgh. You know, would the Niners do him a solid and try to get him there? I don't know what the Steelers would offer in return. That would be interesting to see. I mean, what do you think the Steelers would have to give up to get Ayuk? Because it seems like the Niners obviously want like a wide receiver in return and picks. But I don't know. Do the Steelers have a first-round pick this year?
I'm just trying to figure out, like, what receiver would the Steelers give up in return? Like,
yeah,
that's the part that I'm, like, questioning.
Because they already moved Deontay Johnson. It's basically George Pickens and
nobody.
Right.
Like,
I don't even know how Pittsburgh would get it done.
Like, are you going to sell them on Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, or Quez Watkins?
Right.
Like,
doesn't seem like it. You're going to force them to throw in more picks to trying to. Yeah, I don't see that happening because obviously the Niners want a receiver to replace Ayuk with. So yeah, it's probably just Patriots and Browns. Steelers is just because that's where Ayuk wants to go, but the Niners have to do what's best for the Niners. That's what's best for Brandon
Ayuk. I forgot the. And don't worry, the Browns went and got Jerry Jeudy. You forgot that they got him. The Browns will forget he's on the team after week 1 with how many disappearing acts that man pulls.
Oh, look, in Cleveland, it doesn't help that their quarterback has done a disappearing act since getting there. Like, if he doesn't figure it out, then yeah, Jerry Jeudy's not going to have a lot of fun in Cleveland. Amari Cooper is kind of the same way. Like, those are two guys that are pretty good weapons on the outside. But if Watson is still the, I don't know, mess of a quarterback that he's been so far, then it won't matter. All right, so we all have the Patriots. Jory has it by Friday. So if it happens by Friday, next Tuesday, I'll definitely shout you out, Jory, for having the timetable down correct. All right, let's keep it going. The Hall of Fame game happened this past week to kick off the preseason festivities of the NFL. Most of the other teams obviously will play this week on Thursday. So, if you're a fan of your team, it'll be your first opportunity to see your rookies and everything playing on the field. Although we didn't get Caleb Williams in this one, but whatever. I feel like a lot of the talk has been the kickoff rule because we heard that they had this hybrid rule. I think a lot of people saw like the images that the NFL put out, but we wanted to see it in live action to really gauge whether we like it or not. So this is how they lined up. You have your kicker back on their own 35. Your kickoff team is on the opponent's 40. The kick return team is on their own 35, and then the red zone basically acts like a landing zone for the kicker. They have to get it to land in that zone because if it lands straight in the end zone, the kick comes out to the 30, I believe. And obviously, once the returner catches the ball, then the action gets started in terms of both of the lines at the 40 and the 35. So saying all that, hopefully I didn't confuse anybody because that's as best as I can explain it. Do you like the new hybrid rule now that you've seen it, I guess, in action?
I mean, I like it. I think this will I think it'll be more of a chance now for more explosive kickoff returns, and I think that's sorely missed. So
yes,
that gives more it's more beneficial now to avoid a touchback unless you're the Packers special team. Just kick that in the end zone every time. I've seen enough of your special teams play. But overall, I like it, and I think we will see a lot more explosive returns this year. So honestly, I don't even know how you could hate it at this point.
Right. And I guess another aspect was the NFL saw the XFL kick return, and with the XFL, when the kicker kicks it, the whistle blows before that. And then it's a second whistle that blows that lets the other players know that they can move. The NFL didn't necessarily want the second whistle part of it because they felt like that'd be too much. I think they got some special teams coordinators and kind of this is the hybrid rule they came up with, which supposedly the special teams coordinators love this because it actually gives them something to do on kickoffs. You can now run crazy plays with your two returners, like a fake, reverses, or throwback pass and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm all for it. I hate when a team scores and they just kick it out of the back of the end zone, and we just go to a timeout and then we're waiting to come back, and then the action picks up. So I'm expecting more kick return touchdowns, which I think some fans may have an issue with that if it's too many. But for me, I don't care. I just like the excitement of the kick return. I mean, some of these kickers will probably start having some tackle stats. Now, whether or not your kicker is down for that, we'll see. I know the Chiefs floated out Justin Reed being their kicker because then you'd have a safety back there. So if he has to make an open field tackle, probably better equipped than their kicker. So I kind of wonder how many teams will do that. So it's a nice little potential chess match that I'm definitely intrigued with. As long as a bunch of them don't get scored on my Patriots, I'm all for it.
Well, that's all right. The Patriots are normally great at special teams, so you ain't got to worry about that.
I mean, there used to be. Then last year, their special teams was god awful. So they did change the coaching. So I do think they'll be better for it. George says, "I know my kicker can hit." Hey, look, if you have a kicker that's not scared, then you have nothing to worry about. I think it would be kind of funny if Pat McAfee was playing now, how much he would, because we know Pat McAfee could hit too. It would have been nice to see him playing today. Now I'm trying to think about it. Is my kicker good at hitting? Oh, I got Chad Ryland.
I got Anders Carlson, so he might hit. It's a 50-50 chance. He's got the leg for it. I just don't know if he's accurate enough for it half the time, but
yeah. On the worst, if your kicker just, fakes they broke their ankle, stick a leg out, maybe trip somebody, fine. If that's all you can do, at least you're doing something. I don't need to see my kicker like getting trucked as some guys just dancing into the end zone. That's the last thing I need. All right. All right, so that is actually all I have. But like I said in the beginning, we normally go with fun trivia. And since it's only Brett, I'm not really going to do a trivia question or anything like that. But I think Dylan should be back next week. I will say we'll have a special game for them next week, so you have to come back for that. So instead, we're just going to do a fun topic. We're going to talk about the Madden ratings. So as I pull those up, because Madden's coming out, everybody's so obsessed with, where do they rank my quarterback, all this kind of stuff. We're going to go ahead and take a look at those. So hold on a second.
It's all right. The NBA 2K ratings aren't any better. They got Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas ranked the exact same overall, which is hilarious to me. They're both an 83 overall.
Okay. I forgot about the 2K ratings. I did see like the Celtics like top 6 or something all rated over 87, and somebody was like, all right, they're banned from being used in play now mode. Joey says, my dang Braves. I did see that score. The Braves are losing to the Brewers right now. My Red Sox are losing 1-0 to the Royals. So yeah, I've been paying attention to all of that.
I don't know if it's contend, but my Brewers are winning.
That's right. You are a Brewers fan. I mean, Trajan, if he was still in here, he's a Brewers fan as well. And ratings. Because obviously we'd love looking at certain position groups, which obviously get the most conversation. So I got quarterback. Well, we'll just start with the hard hitting one.
I thought you were gonna pull up long snappers.
I mean, we could say that for next week because that might take 2 hours to dissect long snappers. And there we go. Obviously got these ads and everything, but so according to EA, the brilliant minds at EA, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is a 99. We already know that's going to be a thing till the end of time. But Lamar Jackson, according to EA, second best quarterback at a 98. Sure. Well, I'm sure we'll discuss that here in a second. You got Joe Burrow third at 93. Pretty big drop off from Lamar Jackson to Joe Burrow. Then you have Josh Allen, Dak Prescott is a 90. And then everybody else is under 90. You got 2 at 88, Herbert 87, Hurts, Purdy, Cousins. Aaron Rodgers is an 83. I'm sure Jet fans are crying all across the nation because their golden boy Aaron Rodgers is in a 99. But looking at just the top 10 that's there, what is your biggest gripe? I mean, Jory's already hitting on where you may go with this and where I'm going to go with this. 98. Let's be real here. How?
Yeah,
like I said, Brett, what's your biggest gripe?
I don't. I think my biggest gripe with Madden will always be the hatred on young players. Like it's guys not even listed here, right? Like CJ Stroud is an 81. You watched last year and you're telling me he's an 81 overall?
Yeah.
Jordan Love, 81. What? And of course, like let's even look at the rookie class. We got the most touted rookie quarterback that we've seen in a minute. 76. Excuse me? And like Jory just said, Brock's an 85? Like, honestly, my biggest gripe here just might be Brock Purdy at an 85 and just being below some of these guys because that's just objectively hilarious to me. But I think my gripe with this quarterback isn't who's on this list. It's just who's not. Because you can't convince me these guys are better than CJ Stroud this last year and deserve a higher rating than him.
Yeah. Jory's saying Levis is a 72. That kind of goes to Brett's point. Levis is a young quarterback. They're basically going to make him earn the respect of the rating. I mean, luckily, EA does do like regular updates to ratings. So if Levis balls out, they may bump him a little bit, and then maybe next year he gets, a much better rating. I mean, because I know I actually can't remember what Drake May's rating was, but I think like Jacoby Brissett's a 69 or something like that, which it might be another rough year for me using the Patriots online, especially when everybody's going to be using the Chiefs and the Ravens. Although luckily Patriots defense does get a lot of respect, so they are not. Played a whole 4 snaps. Yeah, I can't remember what Rodgers' rating was last year. But
he was an
a whole 4
86
snaps.
last
Hell
year.
no.
He was like an 86 last year. But what I don't get is Aaron Rodgers loses like 3 overall for the injury, but Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles like 2 weeks later and does not lose an overall from last year. That also doesn't make sense to me. Like, how does that make sense? Like, Kirk ball out in like the 3 weeks that he played, sure, but he also like suffered a major injury. Like, you would think he'd have like that would hurt his overall a little bit.
Yeah. Now, look, to go to Jory's point about the Lamar part of this, the crazy thing is when you look at Lamar's ratings over the years, I think last year he was a 91, and then this year he's a 98. So he gets a whole 7-point jump. But then, like, look at the numbers, and it's like I don't see like a 7-point jump. Now, maybe that's a 7-point bump for winning MVP, whatever. But I don't know about that. That's all I'm saying. And because of that, everybody's going to be using the Ravens, going to run RPO. They're going to run, rollouts and all this kind of stuff. And it's just Lamar running all around the field. And it's just the same thing every year.
Say him and Derrick Henry running RPOs, both with big truz. Good luck.
Yeah. That's all online play is going to be. But whatever. It's part of the challenge. I guess any other thing on the quarterbacks before we move to another position?
No, I'm all cool with like the rest of them. Like,
yeah,
like all these other guys had a fine year. Like Tua, I think, is perfectly rated, perfectly fine. I'm not a big Tua guy, but he had a great year last year. Like the rest of these guys, I think are just fine, honestly.
Yeah, Tua newly paid Tua. 88. I'm sure he's loving that. All right, so let's go. Well, obviously, we're not going to do every position group because that's kind of tedious. Let's look at running backs. Running backs are an important position in terms of Madden, especially if you're like me, love to establish the running game and make people online lose their mind because everybody online wants to run like 5 wide and just throw it all over the field. So looking at the running back position, Christian McCaffrey rocked the 99, had a great year last year. That was obviously expected. Nick Chubb at a 96, even though he had that devastating injury early. But I mean, I saw it was the last month the man was on Instagram lifting 800 pounds. So I think Nick Chubb will be all right started this year. Derrick Henry's a 94, Barkley is 92, Mixon, ETN, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Pacheco, Jonathan Taylor. Do you have any gripes with this running back list?
I think if I had a gripe with anybody, I mean, I could have a gripe about Saquon being a 92 still, even though I don't think he played at the level of a 92 overall last year. But I want to look at the guy underneath him because I've watched Joe Mixon's stats like decline year after year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he always gets this great rating. Like, all due respect to Joe Mixon, like he was literally that last year was like one of his worst years he's had as a pro, 91. How does that make any sense? So if I did really my biggest gripe, it's probably Joe Mixon because I just think that 91 is just hilariously bad.
Yeah, and I guess with EA they're looking at it as you had the Burrow injury last year, you had I mean, you have an offense that's geared towards their wide receivers. So they're probably projecting that going to Houston, a team that's going to be more balanced with their offensive attack. They still think Mixon will be pretty good. I mean, look, Mixon's been a guy who, like, I normally would pick up in like fantasy football because I was just, I guess, a glutton for punishment at that point. Because, like you said, his numbers have declined the past couple of years, but I still think he is a pretty good running back. Jory asked, did Jonathan Taylor even play? He played a little bit. I think Jonathan Taylor's kind of the same. They saw the numbers he had the year before, where he balled out, and they look at the Colts where they had questions at quarterback that they feel like hampered Jonathan Taylor, and then the injury. So I don't know. Taylor's a guy who could possibly dip a little during the season. I don't know. Why is ETN over Jacobs? That's laughable. I actually think there's a lot of people who like ETN in the Jacksonville system. I mean, I don't know, because Jacobs will probably get the same opportunities that Aaron Jones had in Green Bay, and Aaron Jones played pretty well. So I do think that's an interesting question. I mean, it's the difference between a 90 and an 89. So I think if you're EA, you're like, oh, whatever. Yeah, you're not really sweating that one necessarily as much. I mean, who do you think is better, Brett? ETN or Jacobs for next season?
Better next season?
Yeah. Well, I guess this season.
Yeah. This is really tough because I really believe in ETN, and I think he's the better dual threat back. I think Josh Jacobs is better if you need those tough yards between the tackles, but I also think ETN is a much better pass catcher than him. I think going forward, or at least for next year, I think that, you know what? I think him actually will probably end up being ETN. I like Josh Jacobs. I like him coming to the Packers, obviously, but I also think that you're looking at a Jaguars team, then he's going to have a lot more opportunity and touches. I think they'll rely on the run, obviously, with Jacobs, but they also have Watson, Dobbs, Wicks. They have a lot of great weapons at wide receiver. And when you're the Jaguars, a team with drop problems all last year, I think they're going to rely on the run game and lean on ETN more than the Packers will lean on Jacobs.
That's fair. And look, the difference in the two might actually be the quarterback play, as you kind of alluded to. Jacobs will be playing behind Jordan Love, a guy that's a great season. Maybe defenses play against him in the past, which allows for Jacobs to have more running room, while ETN is dealing with a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who had a rough end to the season last year, and this season is kind of under the microscope for a lot of people. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two at the quarterback position affect these two in the running back position. So, look, Jordan, we may see halfway through the season that Jacobs is just playing better because the team might be better, or because Jordan Love is just having a better season than Trevor Lawrence. So, like I said, I think it's interesting to bring those two up. I feel like we should keep track of that.
I think ETN probably puts up like more volume numbers, like he has higher numbers, but I think Jacobs will be the more efficient runner, just for the stark difference in how the difference in quarterback play and the receivers opening up the lanes for them.
Okay, that's fair. All right, let's go wide receiver. That's always a position group that people like to look at as well.
My biggest gripe, I'll tell you right now, is one ACL Odell being an 81 overall. They are still rating this man for one catch he had like 8 years ago, because I promise you, he has not played at the level of an 81 overall for like 5 years now. But hey, he made that cool catch against Dallas in like 2016 at Thanksgiving. So naturally, he's better than a lot of really young guys. He's better than the Packers' entire receiving core, apparently.
Right. George said ETN can catch when sunshine is being accurate and not dumb. Yes. Don't blame all the receivers for those drops. Half of them were bad balls. I mean, look, I feel like with Trevor Lawrence, the second half of the season, down the stretch when they were still somewhat in the playoff race, he did have some terrible reads that did lead to some turnovers. I mean, look, even that Ravens game, the scramble when he lost it when they were driving, like those are plays that kind of became normal at the end of last season that they definitely can't have happen this year. But yeah, so looking at the wide receiver group, obviously Odell's not up here around the top 10, so we don't necessarily talk about him, but that is true. He has ridden that one-handed catch for way beyond the 15 minutes of fame that he should have gotten for it. But hey, that's Odell Beckham. So got Tyreek Hill, 99, Justin Jefferson in 98, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Ayuk. Okay, that says 49ers now. Could say Patriots come next week. Although if he ends up on the Patriots, they'll probably drop him to like an 88 because they just hate him on Patriots. I don't like it. And then you got the ageless wonders and Mike Evans and Keenan Allen rounding out the top 10. With Amari Cooper right there as a 90 as well. Do you have any issue with the top 10 for the wide receivers?
I mean, like, I think this is actually pretty sane, and I think this is pretty fine. Like, I could probably argue for Devontae being like a couple overall higher. Ironically, I can argue Justin Jefferson to be a 99, I think. He's clearly still the best wide receiver in football. But overall, like, I don't hate this as much as I like hate other skill position groups. And my problem with like receivers isn't even like the top of the list. It's like way down at the bottom. I just think there's some really bad ones. Like Zay Flowers being 2 overall points better than Puka Nacua somehow after comparing them last year. I just don't see that. So, but yeah, top of the list, I'm fine. But once we start getting into like the 80s, like mid to low 80s, that's where I start having issues.
Hey, look, clearly Zay Flowers got that Lamar Jackson bump. I guess. I mean, yeah, if you look at what Puka Nacua did last year, it is crazy to think that they rate Zay Flowers higher. Like Puka Nacua had like 1,500 yards receiving. That's crazy.
I'll say he beat him in every like statistical category, and he's somehow worse than Zay Flowers. I don't got any beef with Zay Flowers, but I think they overrated the crap out of him in this game.
Some may say they've overrated the crap out of the Ravens in general. I mean, now that you did mention looking down a little bit, I kind of want to see what they got going on down here. DeAndre Hopkins is an 89. DJ Moore. Terry McLaurin is 89. I love that for Terry McLaurin. He's one of my favorite wide receivers. Cooper Kupp, Lockett. I love Tyler Lockett. Devontae Smith, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle. I guess nothing too crazy yet. Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave.
There he is.
Godwin, Christian Kirk, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton. I know Flowers and Garrett Wilson are both rated 85. I might argue Garrett Wilson's better.
I don't think there's an argument that Garrett Wilson's better than Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
I think there's only one guy that would argue that, and we know who that is.
Tight ends list started a spat, and I had to bring out the encyclopedia. That's going to be the last this week we look at as the tight ends list. Let's see, Christian Kirk, okay. Yeah, Puka Nacua. I mean, Puka Nacua and Gabe Davis have the same rating. That seems pretty disrespectful.
Like what?
Man, Puka, they doing you wrong. Flowers should not be over T. I could make that argument as well. The fact that he and T. Higgins have the same rating is wild as well. going on a Ravens hatred train.
I think Kyle's already the captain of that train, so just hop on the board.
I mean, there's always room. There's always room. Then after that it gets Calvin Ridley, 83, Nico Collins, okay, Pickens, Jacoby Myers at an 82, okay, Jordan Addison. I don't have not too much crazy around here, but
Yeah, I think it's funny because I don't because I know you said tight ends in our last one, and the hilarious part to me is the other one that I found funny. The people do realize it's 2024 and not 2016, right? Like Bobby Wagner's not an 87 overall anymore. I respect the heck out of Bobby Wagner and all he's done.
Yeah.
But he's not the same Bobby Wagner that people are thinking. Like, he still has a high IQ and he's great in run coverage, but when you see him in pass coverage, it's just barbecue chicken. Like, I respect him, but I think he gets overrated, not only in Madden, but like when they did the top 100 by the players too. I think he was rated way too high in that.
Yeah, look, I'm the same way as you. I find it hard to say anything bad about Bobby Wagner. He's one of my favorite linebackers in the league. But he's probably a bit past the prime Bobby Wagner that we all remember and love. So I definitely agree with that one.
Right, like, is he really 20 to 30 spots better than Lavonte David? I'm going to go no. Not in the year 2024.
Lavonte David is like one of the underrated linebackers. He probably shouldn't be, but he is.
Kyle Pitts is 83.
Yeah. So George said they put Medicine Ball Mark at 3. Don't like. Yes, Mark Andrews is at number 3 at 94. Got Travis Kelce as a 99. That's an obvious. George Kittle's a 97. Yeah. Mark Andrews is a 94. I mean, I will say out of those 3, Mark Andrews is usually the third in line. Hawkinson is a 91. Now Njoku is a 90. Njoku had a really good year last year. Some weeks he was probably the best tight end in football, but obviously over the course of the whole season, he's not Kelce or Kittle. You have Evan Ingram, 88. Laporta, I love Laporta at 86. Goddard with the Eagles at 85. Schultz, who's also kind of an underrated guy, 84. Pitts is an 83. I mean, at least he has Kirk Cousins who can at least find him the ball. Desmond Ridder couldn't. So, he may jump up over the course of the season. Cole Kmet, also an 83. And Cole Kmet had a rough start to the season, but as the season went on, he had a much better go of it. Probably as Justin Fields got a little bit better towards the end of the season, Cole Kmet was a big reason for it. So looking at these top 10, 11 guys, I mean, Freiermuth is there at 12. Any issues? I mean, do you have, like Jory said, she doesn't like Mark Andrews at 3?
I'm looking at 6 and 7. Give me, why is Evan Ingram rated higher than Sam Laporta for 500? I think Sam Laporta was better than Evan Ingram last year. And the other one I found that was really funny to me is Dalton Kincaid being the worst rated tight end on the Bills. I genuinely think they put him behind both Dawson Knox and Gerald Everett. And to me, that's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Let's see. Got Knox is an 80. Kincaid's a 79. I just saw Gerald Everett. I mean,
he's an 81. He's right above Dawson Knox.
Okay.
Oh, he's not on the team anymore.
Yeah, they have Everett on the Bears. Yeah.
But I still think it's funny how they have Kincaid over or under Dawson Knox.
Yeah. Gesicki. Brock Bowers is at 78. Okay. I mean, Jonnu Smith, sure. Yeah, he is what it is.
And how is Brock Bowers rated a 78, but Caleb Williams is only a 76? I have to argue for a Bears player on Madden ratings. This is why I hate Madden right now, is because I have to do this. But Caleb Williams cannot be a 76 overall.
No arguments from me on that one. We got Taysom Hill, 75. Okay. That's fine. Jory says there's a tight end that wears blue that had a better year than Old Medicine Man, and that would be Okonkwo from the Titans, who they have as a 73.
Okay,
and yes,
but
if you look at the numbers, he did have a better season than Mark Andrews. Yes.
okay, but did he play with Lamar Jackson? If so, there you go.
There you go. If you play with Lamar Jackson, they probably would have him as an 85. I mean, look, this is what Madden does every year. They put these ratings out. They know everybody's going to lose their mind over it. It builds some type of anticipation for the game. Although I will say that their deep dives so far have kind of built the anticipation as well. But I mean, we'll see how these ratings kind of fluctuate throughout the year. Because like I said, they normally on kind of like a weekly basis will do patches to raise some guys' ratings and then lower some others. So some guys right now who might be towards the top of their position group may dip a little, and ones who might be flying under the radar may shoot up. So, if Okonkwo can ball out with Will Levis, he'll upgrade from the 73. Chauncey Gardner. Chauncey Gardner was really pissed about his. Oh yeah, we probably should look at cornerback.
And don't worry, if Mark Andrews has a down year, he'll probably get bumped up to a 95.
Or a 99. Let's see. Oh wait, Chauncey Gardner is a safety, isn't he? But I just want to look at the corner ratings too. Sauce Gardner, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Surtain, Jair Alexander, L'Jarius Sneed. So look, Jory, your Titans got some respect there. Got L'Jarius Sneed in the top 5. Travarius Ward, Marlon Humphrey, Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, and Trent McDuffie are your top 10 corners.
Well, make sense for you. L'Jarius Sneed is the top 5 corner in this game, but Marshawn Lattimore is the one with the X factor.
Okay, so I take it back, Jory. They didn't necessarily give him all the respect because they didn't give him an X factor or a superstar or anything like that. That is kind of why.
Here's your Chiefs boost to a 92, but don't worry. After week 1, we'll drop you down to an 87 since you're not playing with Mahomes anymore. You don't get the Taylor Swift bump anymore. Sorry, Sneed.
That is kind of wild that he's the only one in the top 5 that didn't get X factor. I mean, Ward didn't get anything either. Yeah, all right, EA. I try to give EA some respect, and then they're just crazy with it. Of course, he's a Titan. Well, yeah. What was the last group? Oh, Chauncey Gardner. So he is a safety.
Fullbacks. Who needs safeties? Fullbacks.
I wonder what the best fullback in football is probably what?
It's got to be Juszczyk, right?
Juszczyk. Yeah. Although no one EA, who knows?
Yeah.
George said, "Don't worry, let Ocho Cinco blind ass keep sleeping." Okay. All right. Yeah, Juszczyk is the best buy. Ravens fans gonna be mad. Patrick Ricard is a whole 7 overall points less. That's disrespectful.
Last year, I kept putting in Luke Musgrave as my tight end and Tucker Kraft and kept alternating them, depending what I needed.
I feel like most people do that. Put in a tight end at fullback.
Tucker Kraft if I need blocking, Luke Musgrave if I want to actually run the ball.
Yeah. I think my ultimate team, I had Laporta as my fullback, and it was great. Gardner Johnson is a free safety, or is he a strong safety? Let's say free safety. I'll take a guess. Jory said, "Let them birds stay mad." I completely agree with that as well. I think this is the one. Yes, this is the list because Gardner Johnson had all kinds of issues with some of these guys. So Jesse Bates is the best free safety in the game. Okay. Antoine Winfield, I don't think you'd have any arguments. Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, Gardner Johnson had an issue with Tyrann Mathieu, I think, being at number 4. I think he had an issue with Kevin Byard at 5. I think those are the two that he had the biggest issue with for 4 and 5. Because they got Javon Holland, Marcus Williams, Jabril Peppers, love him. They paid him as well. He's up there as an 85. Xavier McKinney, and then Gardner Johnson is 10th as an 84. So if you are Gardner Johnson, would you have a beef with anybody 1 through 9?
Like, as a pride thing, maybe, but his ass didn't play.
There you go.
He rode the sidelines the entire year. What did they want him to do? This year, play, and I'm sure they'll boost your rating up, like, after week 1. But I don't know what you expect Madden to do when you spent the entire year on injured reserve until, like, the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Look, it was a wild take from him. I appreciated Tyrann Mathieu going back at him. I thought that was hilarious. But like you said, you should be glad you were even 10th, especially the fact that you did not play most of the season. Like if you're Malik Hooker or, one of these guys, you might be like, how come I'm not rated higher than Gardner Johnson? But like we said, it is Madden. This is what they love to do because it does bring attention to the game. So, I don't know if we'll necessarily revisit the ratings necessarily later in the year, but some of these players will probably keep in the back of our mind to see how well they are playing once the season does start. Let me switch back to this view. There we go. Yeah, so that normally we'd have trivia at that point, but like I said, since it was just Brett, spared him from trivia this week. Just had fun with it, talking about Madden ratings. But yeah, I mean, Brett, anything you want to add before you get out of here? I know you got to go in a little bit because you got another podcast, so you let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I had a great time as usual. I always love coming on here every Tuesday. Check out my page, and if you're into professional wrestling, check out the Meaty Boys podcast coming up in 15 minutes.
All right, there you go. Got Meaty Boys coming up. Wrestling. Look, wrestling is in. I mean, it's been a while. Like wrestling's been in a pretty good spot for a while. They're coming off of SummerSlam. You had a big return. You have like potential storylines. So I'm sure you guys will get into all of that. So like I said, if you're a wrestling fan, make sure you check out his page and everything for Meaty Boys. Yeah, for me, look, like I said, you see me on here a couple of days in the week. So make sure you like the stream, like the video, if you did. Leave comments as well, like Jory's done. Jory carried the comment section for like the second half or most of the show. So definitely appreciate you. Had some others that were in here as well because we love hearing from you all. We love interacting with you while we're talking about our topics. So make sure next week, Tuesday, you come back and jump in the comments and let's have some fun with it. Also follow, subscribe to Integrity Sports Network. We just brought up a Twitch page. So if you prefer to view us on Twitch, you can go over there and check us out on Integrity Sports Net over on Twitch for the same quality stream you get on Facebook or YouTube, but we do have Twitch now. So for myself, for Brett, and like I said, Dylan will be back next week. Make sure you're back here next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We did start a little bit later today, but 7 o'clock normally for another edition of On the Ball Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your night. Appreciate that, Jory. Great show. And yes, you can check Jory and myself out on Friday for Passion and Precision. Like I said, Jory's been all in the comments. If you want to actually see her and hear her, check us out on Friday. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you actually Thursday for Bases Loaded, and then Friday for Passion and Precision. We're out of here. Good night.